That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. It's Southwest Bias brought to you by our friends at Branded Bills. Get your headwear and apparel with Branded Bills. Use the promo code PHNX and you're going to save 20% off your first order. And yeah, the Phoenix Suns and Matt Ishbia, they stepped to the mic on Thursday to share their vision for the future. But it was a little cloudy. Let's be honest. There was a lot of talk of change, but very little that actually did change in the moment. There was a lot of talk of culture. There was talk of what does it actually mean to be a Phoenix Sun. We didn't get a lot of answers, but I think that's okay because Matt Ishbia said change is coming, and it felt like he meant it. And I know you're probably going to say, well, why should we trust somebody that's failed over the last few years? And it's up to you whether or not you do. But if you read between the lines, this didn't feel like a press conference to give a vote of confidence to anyone. This felt like a press conference that was about people sitting in front of the media and taking accountability. Matt Ishbia came out and did his thing, shared his thoughts, and following him came Josh Bartelstein and James Jones. That part of the press conference kind of felt like Dad said, you go out and apologize, and then we'll talk about your punishment. Matt Ishbia talked about how he had just gotten in town from Michigan, that they're going to have meetings, that they're looking at everything, and that change is coming. That phrase was repeated multiple times. And the question is, what will that change be? You heard James Jones in the press conference talk about how changes in rules happen and that they can change from year to year and moment to moment, and that he'll do what's best for the team. Read between the lines there. Feels like maybe James might have a different job at some point in the front office. Or maybe they mutually agree to part ways during this with his contract coming up. Josh Bartelstein didn't feel like he had the most confidence in the world about where he was standing either. And you got to wonder, one of those changes that's coming, that his focus will turn to the business side of things. There is the chance that no major change comes, that, oh, we've rearranged our scouting department. We've made minor tweaks. And if that's the case, then we're going to have a much different conversation as a fan base to have about where this team stands. But I will give Matt Ishbia credit. He did say he was going to take his fair share of the blame and that it starts at the top. And this is something we've talked about for years, including with the disgraced former owner, that things start at the very top with ownership. And he admitted he had not set the tone appropriately of what the identity of the Phoenix Suns should be. He admitted that fans had a right to be pissed off this last year with what happened on the court and with the lack of passion, heart, joy that came along with it. But what will the identity of the Phoenix Suns be? We heard Matt Ishbia mention Michigan State, which he's prone to do. He played for the university, so of course that's going to be something he judges things by. He also brought up the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you heard the words grind and grimy and playing with joy, that he wants it to reflect the city of Phoenix. If you want it to reflect the city of Phoenix, that requires bringing in players, coaches, and front office people that understand how much this franchise means to Phoenix and to its fans. It's Phoenix's first professional sports team. It's the team that people fell in love with back when this was a sleepy desert town and not a metropolis. Back when everybody thought it was cowboy hats, cactuses, and tumbleweeds. That means something to this city, to the generation of fans that wound up coming before you and will be here for years to come. It means something, and it needs to mean something to the next coach and to the front office. And Matt Ishbia seems to understand how much it means to you and me, but it doesn't matter unless that change actually occurs, and it's changed for the better. That there is movement within this organization so we never have to suffer through a team that does not seem to care. Because if there's one thing that Suns fans always do, is they care. Maybe even sometimes too much, but they care. And that needs to be reflected on and off the court within the organization. Matt Ishbia said he's a steward of the franchise and that we're essentially the ones that own it. So it's time that we get better, that we're given what we deserve. It's time to see those changes come to fruition, to see what the new identity of the Phoenix Suns is. Does it reflect us? Does it reflect a winning culture and a culture that takes pride in what they do? Or are these changes minimal? Is it more the same? And did we just get lip service out of media availability to try to make fans feel a little bit better about a putrid season they just went through? Maybe it's my Southwest bias, but I think we'll get there. On the other side of the break, I bring in Darth Voida, our friend from over at Bright Side of the Sun, and we talk about this press conference, the future of the Suns, and a lot more. Got to tell you about Branded Bills. You can see the hat here. You can see him back on the wall. Branded Bills has the best headwear and apparel in the business. It's that simple. And the best part, it's made right here in the Valley. They got a whole place over in Tempe. I've been there. I've seen them hand make these hats. It is unbelievable the attention to detail that they put in with the designs and everything that they do and the technology. It sounds funny to say technology when it comes to a hat, but they take it seriously with their fabrics and everything that they do. And if you're looking for a way to customize gear for your business, they've got you covered there too. We make custom PHNX hats through our friends at Branded Bills. They can do the same for your company. But if you're not somebody that owns a company and you're just looking for some amazing hats, they've got hats from your favorite teams, but they also have great state logos like I'm wearing and just fantastic general hats as well. So go to brandedbills.com, use the promo code PHNX, and you're going to save 20% off your first order. I got to tell you about my friends over at All Pro Shade Concepts. They have taken care of me like nobody else. I've been through a lot of different things at my house, having things installed, different projects that have gone on, but the easiest and most successful that I've had is with All Pro Shade Concepts. They came out and they gave me a free estimate, showed me all the materials that they were going to use for my window covering that I got from my giant sliding glass door. They said, hey, look, we can do this manual or we can do this electric. I said, give me electric because I'm lazy, right? And they came out and the installation was so easy. They were clean. They were fantastic in their craftsmanship, and everything got done in fast order. I couldn't be more happy with my All Pro Shade, and I want you to be happy as well. So give them a call at 623-204-1476 or visit allproshadeconcepts.com to sign up for your free estimate. I guarantee that you'll love it. All right, I told you before the break that we were going to bringing in my good friend, Darth Voida from Bright Side of the Sun and Suns Jam Session. Buddy, what did you make of today's press conference? I talked about it to start the show, but I need your twisted perspective on this.
Oh man, twisted perspective is a good way to put it. It's we've heard words before, and I understand that Matt Ishbia being transparent is a good thing. I mean, not a lot of owners at the end of every season get in front of the media, field some questions, talk a lot, like he took a couple, 100 milligrams of Excedrin. He gets caffeinated, he gets going, and I appreciate that about Matt Ishbia. But here we are at the end of the third season that was unsuccessful under his tutelage, and I'm kind of at the point where words are just words, and I need to see action. He said all the right buzzwords, Espo. He said accountability. He said embarrassed. He said identity. These are things that you get excited to hear about because, yes, at least he's aware of what the problem is with this team. But until we start to see action, and that action doesn't come through a new GM or who the head coach is going to be or the transactions this upcoming offseason, the action is winning on the court. Because for everything great that he has done for this organization and this community, which is a lot of great things, and I know we joke about $2 hot dogs and things of that nature, but at the same time, he has been a positive influence on this organization, this city, relative to the fan experience. The best way to have a fan experience is to put a winning team on the floor, something you can get behind each and every night, and you're excited to cover. And I know for you, I know especially for me, covering at a Bright Side of the Sun and doing post games with the Suns Jam session, not every night this year was exciting. A lot of them, it was just going through the motions, and God bless everybody who read my words and listened to what I had to say on post games. I mean, it was just a lot of soul searching, and I hope that he has done his soul searching and can do it through words, or I'm sorry, through actions rather than words moving forward.
I think the action has to start with the front office because if you run it back and you just let the same people make the next decision, why am I to believe it's going to be any different than the last two that you had from a head coaching perspective or the last two off seasons that you've had? Like, to me, that action starts with reassigning Josh Bartlestein to focus on what CEOs usually focus on, the business side and doing those kind of things, the community side, which I think he's more than capable of doing, and I think he's done a very good job on that side of it. And then it'd be looking at, am I mutually agreeing to part ways with James Jones? Am I reassigning him to some other role and bringing in a president of basketball operations that can actually implement a vision? Because Matt Ishbia is talking about this vision, this identity that he wants for the franchise. Well, it's pretty obvious if he doesn't feel like they've had it, that those two guys haven't delivered on one, right? So you have to find somebody that can. To me, that action starts with that, and then it leads to winning on the floor.
Yeah, up until today, I didn't necessarily agree with that because I thought that a lot of the decisions that had been made were probably conducted by James Jones because he had the cell phone number of Joe Tsai and he knows Mark Bartlestein, obviously through Josh Bartlestein. And I felt that leading up to today, if you look at the history of James Jones with Phoenix, he did a good job executing a vision and putting together a roster that went to the finals unexpectedly, but then won 64 games. And he had an opportunity to get Kevin Durant in the summer of 2022, and he didn't because he didn't want to give up all the assets and the draft capital that would take. But then Matt Ishbia came into town. A day later, boom, we did sell the farm. And 3 months later, boom, we did it again. And we got rid of everything. And I was like, okay, James Jones is the general manager, but I kind of feel like these are decisions being promoted by the new owner who came in. But then there were some words today that Bartlestein said, and James Jones was right there sitting next to him, kind of fortifying, saying like, yeah, Matt Ishbia doesn't have any input necessarily on these personnel decisions. He's just the guy who kind of green stamps them, right? And once I heard that, I was like, you know what? Even if that's the case, and my guess is it's probably they're probably not telling the complete truth there. They're probably kind of covering for Matt Ishbia, if you will, knowing, to your point, that they're probably going to get reassigned to do different things within the organization. I don't think there's going to be a clean cut of either of them. But they're kind of setting themselves up to gracefully step down from their current positions and move forward. But even if that's the case, that's not the kind of guys I want trying to fix this issue. I thought that, yeah, you keep James Jones here to try to fix this issue, and Matt Ishbia takes a step back. Everything that I heard today was the exact opposite. James Jones can be more involved. He's responsible for the identity. He's responsible for the vision. And he needs to make sure that the people are in place to do that. And yeah, that might be the case, but whoever he does bring in, he needs to let them execute the vision. He needs to put the word on the whiteboard and then let them interpret what that means and execute the vision moving forward. You know, he said, like Sam Cooke said back in like 1964, he said a change is going to come. Well, that's going to be a big change that he needs to face, is that he needs to kind of let go of some of that control. And it kind of sounds like the opposite is going to happen moving forward. So I wouldn't doubt, to your point, that Bartelstein is going to be less involved, maybe walking around the arena a little bit less. And I think that James Jones, yeah, he's probably going to get in a different position within the organization. But you're right, and I didn't think so until today. I was like, you know what? Yeah, we need to just clean slate this thing. And I know we have a crunch time, Espo. I mean, the draft is upcoming, and we have 2 picks. There's a lot of big transactions that need to occur 4 or 5 days after that once free agency opens up. So they're going to have to start really making those changes that Matt Ishbia promised. It's got to start happening here pretty quick.
Well, I mean, in theory, you could agree to trades, once a team's out of the playoffs before then. There and not to mention, you're competing against other teams that have coaching openings that are pretty good teams. So you got to find a way to have that vision in place quite quickly. And there was a lot of talk about, oh well, maybe people weren't in alignment on things. A lot of people freaked out and took today as a rubber stamp on the front office. And I felt like if you read between the lines, it felt more like Dad saying, go out there and apologize to these people, and we'll talk about your punishment when you get back in here, right? I said that in the open, and I stand by that. That's what today felt like. You are going to go out there. If I have to get embarrassed and deal with this, you're going out there and dealing with this. And then, yeah, maybe I'll still fire you.
Yeah, today was the penance. Today they were out there saying their Hail Marys and their Our Fathers in front of the media. And we will see. My guess is over these next few days, although Matt Ishbia, Josh Bartelstein, James Jones, they all reference the fact that they're going to, take time to determine who that next head coach is going to be. And I'm hoping that that's just code to say, hey, we just need that Miami series to end because Miami's going to beat Atlanta tomorrow. And once that's done, we're going to go and get Chris Quinn. But they're going to take time to make that happen. But other things aren't going to take time. I think with as many times as Matt Ishbia said the word change today, that we will see some of those changes front office wise here probably pretty quickly. That's what he's in town to do, to make sure that they've come in, they've said their confession, they've gone out there, they've said their penance, and now he can make some decisions more moving forward and absolve them of their sins.
Yeah, and you can't tell me that he has not been thinking about this and thinking about it for months, right? So we need more time. We had to wait till Matt got here, and now we're going to find out what's happening, and probably in short order, because you can't say change is coming. You can't say change is needed in that press release that you put out when you let Mike Budenholzer go, and then tell me we reorganized the scouting department. Like, nobody's going to buy that, right? And nobody's going to buy that the change you were insinuating was trading somebody in the offseason. This felt imminent. It felt like the winter is coming kind of thing. Like, this is going to happen in short order. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it, because he never said what his vision was. He mentioned grit. He mentioned, guys that like to grind and people that'll bring joy to the job, but never really mentioned what that vision is. And my guess is he's going to be explaining that quite thoroughly to everybody in that building over the next day or two. And then we're going to find out a lot more about what that is.
Yeah, his mind's telling him no, but his body's telling him yes. He doesn't see nothing wrong with a little bit of bump and grind, but now he's got to get everyone to buy into what exactly that bump and grind is.
I'm sorry. Hold on. That's what got the last owner in trouble. So let's slow the bump and grind. Let's just stay with. Yeah. Okay. Fine. All right.
Bumping and grinding on the court, athleticism. It was funny hearing Bartelstein talk about how the NBA's changed in the last 2 seasons. It's like, no, the team has changed. What we had is what the NBA is: youth, athleticism, grit, defense, all those things that this team possessed that when he came in, they completely blew up within the first 48 hours. So the league hasn't changed. The Suns have changed in the exact opposite direction of the league, combined with the fact that the CBA has occurred. So a time when spending recklessly used to be accepted is no longer accepted. And there's massive penalties, and we've paid the price for every single one of them. Every turn has been the wrong turn for this team. Every single turn. So it's time for, Matt Ishbia to understand what that vision is. And hopefully he hasn't had too much Excedrin, so when he's writing it on the board, it's not scribbled and people don't understand exactly what that vision is. It's got to be clear, concise, and direct, so they know what they need to do moving forward and the type of players that they want to bring in, the culture that they want to build. Because I'll tell you what, Mike Budenholzer was not a culture builder. Frank Vogel wasn't really a culture builder. Monty Williams was, and they bid him adieu.
Well, okay, to be fair, I think Monty Williams is the guy that helps you establish a culture when there is zero, when you're at that lowest of levels, and then you need another guy to get you over the hump.
I don't
Now
disagree.
they chose two guys that couldn't get over a molehill, let alone a mountain that you had to get over. But that's neither here or there. That's why they moved on from both guys. But we did hear Matt Ishbia talk about how they won't be the highest payroll in the NBA next year, which to me, I took his code as we won't be in the second apron next year, likely, or at least not as high as we were, because it triggers some penalties if you're there too long, but B, you don't set $400 million on fire and then go, hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, 100%. And I also read between the lines too, because he's like, hey, in the next 40 or 50 years that I'm going to be here, there's going to be some years where we don't win as many games as we just did, which was 36. But you're going to be proud of this team because of their competitiveness. And I think back to 10 years ago when like Gerald Green was out there dunking and we weren't winning half as many games as we won this year, but we all enjoyed watching those teams because we had one thing that we don't have right now, and that's hope. And maybe that's what he's potentially talking about. I don't know if that's short term. I don't know if that's long term, but resetting aspects of what has occurred, righting some of the wrongs. And if that does happen, there is going to be a learning curve for this team as they readjust how they operate. And if they're going to, this is the Devin Booker conversation. We know it's not going to happen now, but we know eventually it's going to happen. Devin Booker's time in Phoenix will be over, whether it's when he retires here or whether they trade him after signing him to that massive deal that's upcoming. And then a couple, 2-3 years into this, if it's still not working, they're going to have to try to maximize that asset. And there's going to be some potentially dark days ahead. And I don't know how the Suns fan base will react to that. But if you remember back to 10 years ago, did it suck? Absolutely. But at least we had hope. I think that's been the hardest thing about this entire season, this last 2 years since Matt Ishbia has taken over, is he's swung for the fences, and I appreciate that. But like, we got to start hitting some doubles and some singles. Like, get him on, get him over, get him in. That's what he needs to start focusing on. And you know what part of that's doing is having flexibility to do so. And as you mentioned, getting out of that second apron is unbelievably important. And they have the opportunity to do it this upcoming offseason. It's going to be tricky, and this team is going to look very different. Dare I say it's going to look like it's changed. I can say buzzwords too.
Look, man, I think we have Stockholm syndrome when we think about a decade ago, because we didn't have fun in those days.
It was a different kind of fun. It was a different kind of fun.
The most fun we had was when Game of Zones did Sun Kings and Vlade asked about the dragon, right? Like, that was the most fun we had in those days.
Remember just hitting Tankathon over and over and over again?
I'm sorry. I cannot buy into this rewriting of history that has happened over the last 6 months, 12 months, that we had fun in those days. No, we hated it. It was miserable. We were wandering the desert literally as basketball fans, waiting for something decent to happen, and they still screwed it up at every turn. So as much as this sucks, I'm like, come on, let's not say that we were having the greatest time of our lives back a decade ago.
We put the FU in fun. It was tough times, and it's important for people to remember that everything that we're doing right now, like, we have a Devin Booker. Everyone's like, blow it up, man. Why? So we can get a Devin Booker in 7 years from now? Like, it takes time and development. I think more of my point was the fact, or the point I was trying to make was, there are dark days ahead. and it's going to happen eventually. Everyone has to pay the piper. The Suns have put themselves in such a deep grave that they've dug themselves into. It's going to be very, very hard to get out, and cap gymnastics and asset swaps and everything. So it's going to be a tough out. But I liked watching Gerald Green dunk, man. He was really good at that. With like 9.5 fingers. It was impressive.
To be fair,
was
I think he
fun.
was on that 48 win team. So,
I think you're right.
I
That was a
think
fun
we did it.
season.
I think we did enjoy
Wasn't
that
that a decade
season
ago?
with
I said a
all-
decade ago.
Okay,
That
fine. I'll allow it for right now. I think you're
Sustained.
right though. It was interesting to hear Matt Ishbia talk about what you said, that we may not win as many games, but you'll be proud. But then also say, I'm quick to change, but if there's a plan in place, I'm also willing to let it proceed if it looks like it's moving forward in the way that we expect, which is a totally different tone than we're never gonna accept anything that other than competing for a championship. So I think that was planting the seeds for there's a soft reset coming, and then there might have to be a hard reset at some point where we actually rebuild this thing. And that, again, this whole press conference to me was reading between the lines and trying to understand what was really going on. And that one seemed like a large shift in mindset from what we've heard before.
And again, Espo, I'm gonna go back to what I said at the front end of this. They're just words. Like, show me. I need to see it, because I could sit there and overanalyze everything that Ishbia said 3 ways to Sunday. And as I was writing, my recap of what he said for Bright Side of the Sun, that's where I kind of was like, he said this and he said this, and it makes you think this. I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, like, words are words, and I've heard these before, and I'm not like, I have scar tissue on my heart right now, and like, I can't just get excited by words that the owner said after a crap season. And I'm not going to get excited, even if we get Chris Quinn, because that's who I want us to get. Whoever the new head coach is, I'm just not going to get excited. I can't. I've had so much optimism, as so many other people had coming into this season, to see it literally a 180 of every possible avenue, every street we could go down. The Google Maps was just taking us all the wrong ways, and we should have used Waze instead of Google Maps, even though I think Waze is owned by Google Maps now. And I can't allow myself to get back into that excitement mode. And maybe that's just because, we're recording this on the 17th of April, my half birthday, mind you. I'm 42 and a half. So maybe when June comes around, in July, and we have that angst and that yearning for Phoenix Suns basketball, we start to talk ourselves into it. But I'm going to do my best to be as cautious as possible, because, again, they're just words. I need to see it. I need to. I can't anymore. I just can't.
Well, these have just been words, but I've enjoyed them. I hope to see some action from you in the near future. He is John Voida. Catch him at Bright Side of the Sun and on the Suns Jam Session podcast. And you can follow him on X or Twitter or whatever the hell you're calling it, at Darth Voida. Always appreciate your time, man.
No, always. Thanks for having me on. And there ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of bump and grind. Nothing wrong.
Unless you're the boss.
Yes, absolutely. Then, I mean, there's HR regulations. Come on, have some class.
Want to end this recognizing something. We just came over the year anniversary of the Arizona Coyotes' final game in the Valley, and it hit me again how important sports is to this town, and how many connections I've been lucky enough to make because of it. And in particular with that Coyotes group. We have a very dedicated group of people we like to call diehards here at PHNX. And the hockey community has been the most loyal of any of those groups. Even after losing a team, they'll come out to ASU hockey events. They've supported our friends that were on that program, Leah and Craig and Petey. They have been there for them each step of the way through how difficult losing a franchise and losing their show has been. There is something truly special about that group. There's something truly special about hockey in this town. Hockey belongs in the desert. And I don't know how long it will take to get it back here, but it is a must that the NHL comes back to Phoenix at some point. Because it was never the fans' fault that ownership was so wayward and lost and bad and cheap and just completely ignorant to what it would actually take to build an arena in a place that fans would actually go to. And people like our diehards deserve to have that back here. The community lives, the love for hockey lives, and youth hockey still lives in this valley and will continue to, whether or not Gary Bettman and the NHL come back here anytime soon. But those people, that passion deserves to see an NHL team back on the ice here. That is another edition of Southwest Bias. Appreciate my guest, John Voida, stopping by. Appreciate you watching. Shout out to the mustache behind the Mac, Shane Diefenbach, for putting this all together. I'm Espo. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.